the resources of the north, Lucifer said, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High God. God had to say something about that as well. And God's answer to Satan was this: you will be thrust down to the recesses of the pit. Wow. And so I suggest to you this morning that man is born into this world with the universal language of his father. Man is born into this world the spitting image of his father, the devil. Man is born into this world full of himself. Full of this world. The Bible says he's born into this world full of sin. Determined to have his own way. Determined to do his own thing. And in that, he is headed in the same direction as his father, the devil. He is headed for the deep recesses of the pit unless he repents of his sin. The world still speaks the same language spiritually. And God says that the foolishness of man will be brought to naught. Secondly, this morning, man is scattered and confused due to his rebellion against God. Consider the nations around the world today, folks. The so-called great leaders of this world today, folks, are sitting around scratching their heads wondering, what are we going to do? The nations of the world today find themselves in utter economic chaos. I'm convinced that you and I don't know the half of it.
That's right.
And they are confused about what to do. Markets, the stock markets around the world are erratic and confused. And you and I are living in a world today that could literally be standing at the brink of economic collapse. All because man insists on doing things his own way and ignoring God. Rioting in the streets all across the land. They're rioting in Greece. They're rioting in London. Confusion around this globe because man wants his own way. Let us bring it a little closer to home this morning. You've been watching the TV, you know that the U.S. stock market's been like a roller coaster the last few days. Swinging up and down, back and forth. Sometimes 400 to 700 points a day. That, my folks, is unprecedented. The markets are confused. Man is confused. Corporations are confused. Governments are confused. Our government is spending over $300 billion a month, and it's only taking in less than $200 billion a month. The United States of America has doubled its debt in the last 3 years. We've maxed out our credit cards at about $17 trillion, and the government wants another credit card. Where's unemployment in our land today? Through the roof. And the more it seems like the elitists of Washington, D.C. seek to fix it with their worldly wisdom and all of their worldly knowledge, the deeper they sink into the recesses of the pit. Some church folk get into a tizzy. They have a fit because the church got to spend a few dollars. When the church has got a few $1,000s in the bank, yet these same church folk will go out here and vote for somebody who's going to spend $300 billion a month when the government's only taking in $200 million. You know what Jesus said about that? He said, you're a hypocrite. You're looking at the speck in your brother's eye, and you got a beam that long shooting out of your own eye.
Amen.
Look at the condition of our families today, folks. Bankruptcy at an all-time high. Mortgage foreclosures at an all-time high. Divorce rates as high as ever. Homeless families on the streets. Social agencies having to close their doors because they can't handle the volume of needs that are coming to the front door. How about our judicial system? Courtrooms are filled daily with criminals. The prisons and the jails are filled to capacity. The courtrooms are filled with incompetent prosecutors, incompetent jurors, crooked cops, and flashy attorneys. We'd be remiss if we forget to mention the educational system in America that is turning out high school graduates who can't read, who can't write, who can't think for themselves. And the government's answer to the educational system in America is just to keep pumping more and more money into it. And the more money we pump into it, the further it sinks down into the deep recesses of the pit. Started sinking into the recesses of the pit when we threw God out of the education system. The government of the United States of America started sinking down into the recesses of the pit when it said we don't want God in government anymore. Man sinned. At the Tower of Babel, stunk up heaven. I'm here to tell you this morning that man is still stinking things up today with his stinky, sinful thinking. Man is scattered and confused due to his own rebellion against God. Last this morning, the Bible tells us that those who dare to build without God are destined to failure. Man's busy building his own kingdoms today. The problem is he has determined to build his kingdom without God.
His way, yeah.
He doesn't want to acknowledge God in his plan. He refuses to look toward heaven for help. He's neglected God's prescribed way of doing things. I'll tell you right now, folks, the current government administration from the top to the bottom is determined to build its own utopian kingdom that will spread around the world. That's biblical. The Bible speaks of a one world government, folks.
Take a look at us.
In the last day. Even while seeing that their ideas have failed all over the world historically, they are still determined. They have decided that they are smarter than anybody else and they can make it work. They have been busy promising folks a utopian kingdom. Promising folks health care. Promising folks welfare. Promising folks a home. Promising folks an education. All along simply making people dependent upon them. The government of this nation has literally become the God of many people. Busy trying to build a kingdom. Ignoring the historical data of socialism, of Marxism, of communism, refusing to understand that it is a road that leads to disaster. The world is still busy building its own towers, folks. Problem is they're building their towers on sinking sand. Jesus put it this way. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, the floods came, the winds blew and slammed against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Those who built the Tower of Babel built it on sand. They refused to listen to God. They excluded God from their plans. They didn't take time nor thought to ask God what He thought about it. And the result of their rebellion brought them nothing but confusion. Man in his sinful state is destined for failure. Everything that man does today, whether it be in his own life, whether it be in his family, whether it be in his government, whether it be in his educational system, everything that he does in his own strength and in his own power is temporary and is doomed to fail. Those who build without God are destined for failure. The world's foolishness, man's foolishness, will one day be brought to naught. You see, what the world doesn't understand, folks, is God's been busy building